Welcome to MMAPlay365. I'm Newsome and I'm here to give you the Blaydes AI recap from last weekend at UFC London. Now, UFC London, Blaydes AI hit, I believe, 6 out of 14, which is around 43%, rounding it up mathematically. And again, not where we want to be, but there was some difficult fights, and I actually think it was a bit of a strange event, if I'm being honest. Like, I was there personally. I think everyone expected it to be this wild, crazy event like the last UFC London event, and it just wasn't that. And then there was the main event with the way that finished as well, in regards to only being there 20, 30 seconds, Aspinall losing via TKO by doing his ACL from his own kick on Curtis Blaydes. So I feel like it was a bit of a strange event, but listen, as always, you know, there's going to be some bad moments. Well, there were obviously some bad moments from Blaydes AI, which we'll cover. I'll always cover the bad moments as well as the good, but again, there's some really good moments as well and some good predictions, which I'll talk about right now as we get straight into it. So the first section that I like to talk about is the value section, where there is value, and this is where Blaydes AI is picked incorrectly, but has made a case for the betting lines to be way much closer than they should have been. Now, Ludovit Klein versus Mason Jones. I think for myself, I was quite surprised that Mason Jones lost this fight. And I think a lot of others were really surprised as well. I thought that Mason Jones was going to be able to run through Klein. I actually thought Mason Jones's big betting line was relatively justified as well. However, Blaydes AI had Klein to win at 44%. So again, an incorrect prediction. However, the betting lines, it should have been much closer according to Blaydes, and that's what creates the value. And at 44% odds implied, that's plus 127. Klein was plus 350. So Blaydes AI was saying, look, this fight's much closer than what the odds are suggesting. Klein should be an underdog, but he shouldn't be this big of an underdog. He should be very slightly in that underdog status, but at plus 350 compared to plus 127 odds implied, crazy value there. So that's the first section covered here. Now we move on to the solid winners. So Jonathan Pearce versus Makwan Amirkhani. Pearce to win 60%, odds implied minus 150. You could have got Pearce at close around minus 145, minus 150. So basically there wasn't a ton of value there from what the Blaydes AI was predicting, but the Blaydes AI was basically saying that the odds are correct on Jonathan Pearce being a minus 150 favourite. And honestly, like, you watch that fight and you sort of get that as well. But then you can dig a little bit deeper here, and this is where you get a little bit more value. So Jonathan Pearce to win inside the distance, you add the KO and the submission percentages together from Blaydes AI, and you get 49%, which odds implied is plus 104. He was plus 150 on the betting line to win inside the distance. So even though the money line, there wasn't value there, although the Blaydes AI was agreeing with the betting line, the value really was Jonathan Pearce to win inside the distance, and that's where the plus 150 against the plus 104 odds implied creates value there as well. The next solid winner in this section, Mohammed Mokhev, he was actually the biggest percentage prediction on the card. It was only 64% though, but that was the largest prediction from Blaydes AI. Now 64% odds implied minus 178. It was minus 500 on the betting line. And to be honest with you, he kind of looked like a minus 500 favourite as well. It was relatively justified, but even though there was no value from Blaydes AI, it was still a solid winner. Blaydes AI was saying out the entire card, Mohammed Mokhev has the best chance of winning his fight or her fight, and that portrayed on the night because Mokaev won with relative ease. So again, another solid prediction from Blaydes AI. And the final solid prediction to run over was actually an underdog as well. We've got Victoria Leonardo versus Mandy Bohm. Now, Victoria Leonardo was very slightly favoured, so it wasn't too much off a coin flip, 52% to win the fight, odds implied. That's minus 108. Now, the line did flip here, by the way. So I said it was an underdog. It actually closed at a pick'em, I believe, a minus 110 pick'em on either side. So at minus 110 pick'em, Blaydes AI saying that's where the fight should have been. However, when Blaydes AI dropped the predictions Tuesday, Wednesday of fight week, you could have got plus 130, plus 120 on Victoria Leonardo. So she was an underdog when the Blaydes AI predictions dropped on fight week. And there's a lot of value there because, like I said, Leonardo odds implied minus 108 at 52%, but you could have got her at decent plus money, and she won 30-27 as well. So it was comfortable across all three scorecards. And the line moved the way Blaydes AI had the fight predicted as well. So a solid winner, solid prediction from Victoria Leonardo. And finally, we move into our bad losses section. So the first one is Marc Diakiese versus Damier Hajevich. I knew this was going to be a bad prediction. I'm very surprised that it had Damier Hajevich winning the fight. You know, I don't really know how the algorithm really puts everything together to spit out the result. But obviously it saw something there from Damier Hajevich, but it had Marc Diakiese to win that fight at 47%. Odds implied that's plus 113, but Marc was minus 400 on the betting line, so no value at all from a betting perspective, and also badly picking the fighter wrong because Marc absolutely shut Damier Hajevich down. It wasn't even close. Damier Hajevich barely even had any moments in that fight either. So, like I said, that was definitely falls under the category of bad losses. And the second bad loss fight, because there was two this week, Molly McCann versus Hannah Goldy. Molly McCann, same thing as Marc, 47% to win the fight, odds implied plus 113. Also the same as Marc, around a minus 400 favourite. Also the same as Marc, completely dominated her opponent and looked great on the night. The crowd went nuts. Really good sequence knockout as well, by the way. Like the atmosphere was electric inside the arena for Molly McCann, and also obviously Paddy Pimblett. But back to the bad losses, like I said, the Marc Diakiese prediction versus Damier Hajevich and the Molly McCann versus Hannah Goldy were off. You can't expect out of 14 fights every single prediction to be absolutely solid, so that's where you do get these couple of bad ones every now and again. It's normally only one an event. This one was two, but there was more fights, so it kind of makes sense. But that's where we're at for Blaydes AI for the recap from last weekend at UFC London. Ultimately, I am happy with everything. It's, everything, the predictions that the Blaydes AI is spitting out. It's had a couple of little off weeks the last 2 weeks, but outside of that, he was hitting 100%, 80%, 70%. So you are going to get a couple of events that do throw you, the same as a handicapper as well. There's some events that just throw you a little bit more than usual, more than normal. Nothing to worry about. Blaydes AI is still killing it. It's still smashing it. And we're going to be back again next week for another Blaydes AI recap from this weekend's UFC 277 pay-per-view. I'm Newsome. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week.